Sarah loved her job at the quaint little cafe on the corner of Maple and Fifth. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods filled the air, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Regular customers greeted her with smiles, and she enjoyed the rhythm of the morning rush, bustling around with her co-workers. But as Halloween approached, an unsettling presence began to overshadow her daily routine. It started with whispers among her colleagues about a strange man who frequented the cafe. He never ordered anything, just sat in the corner, his long hair obscuring his face, eyes fixed on the patrons with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Just ignore him," her co-worker Lisa had said, rolling her eyes. "He's harmless." But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time she glanced his way, he seemed to be staring directly at her, a predatory glint in his dark eyes. She found herself avoiding that corner of the cafe, opting instead to serve customers who brought light and laughter into the space. On Halloween night, the cafe was decked out in festive decorations, jack-o'-lanterns flickering on tables and cobwebs draping from the ceiling. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and chatter, but as closing time approached, Sarah noticed him again, sitting silently in his usual spot. "Time to go!" she called out cheerfully to the remaining customers, hoping to mask her unease. But when she approached him to ask him to leave, he merely stood up, his tall frame looming over her. He didn't say a word, he just smiled, a wide, chilling grin that sent shivers down her spine. As he walked out into the night, Sarah felt a strange mix of relief and dread wash over her. She locked up quickly, glancing over her shoulder as she stepped into the cool evening air. With her headphones in place, she tried to drown out the lingering fear with music as she set off for home. The streets were eerily quiet for Halloween night, usually filled with laughter and costumes. They now felt like a ghostly echo of what should have been. As she walked briskly down Maple Street, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She turned sharply, but saw nothing, just shadows dancing under the flickering streetlights. Shaking off her nerves, she pressed on, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then she saw it, a reflection in a darkened shop window. The tall figure with long hair and sunken eyes was there again, staring right at her. Panic surged through Sarah. It was him, the man from the cafe. She blinked hard, but when she looked again, he was gone. Heart racing now, she quickened her pace until she broke into a sprint. Each footfall echoed ominously in the silence as she turned down side streets, desperately seeking safety. Her breath came in ragged gasps as adrenaline surged through her veins. Finally, spotting her building ahead, relief washed over her like a wave. She fumbled for her keys, hands trembling uncontrollably as she inserted one into the lock. Glancing back one last time, was he behind her? The street lay empty. Perhaps it had all been in her head. With a sigh of relief, Sarah twisted the key and pushed open the door. Just as she was about to slam it shut behind her, a foot wedged itself in the gap, long and pale. Her heart stopped as she looked up into those hauntingly dark eyes once more. The man stood there silently, his lipless mouth stretching into that terrifying smile. "Trick or treat," he whispered softly, his voice like dry leaves scraping across gravestones. The door creaked open wider as Sarah's world plunged into darkness, a darkness that felt alive and hungry for fear. Mia had always loved her job at the cozy little bookstore, Whispers of the Past. Nestled in a quiet corner of town, it was a haven for book lovers. But as Halloween approached, strange occurrences began to disrupt the store's peaceful atmosphere. Every evening, as she prepared to close up, Mia felt an unsettling presence lurking among the shelves. Customers would often mention seeing a tall man with long hair wandering through the aisles, but he never bought anything. Instead, he would stand in the shadows, watching with an intensity that made her skin crawl. On Halloween night, as the last customers left, Mia felt a chill in the air. The store was dimly lit and she could hear the wind howling outside. She hurried to finish her closing duties, glancing nervously at the darkened corners of the store. Just as she was about to lock the door, she heard a soft whisper. "Mia!" It echoed through the aisles like a ghostly breeze. Heart racing, she turned to see him, the man from before, standing at the end of the aisle, his long hair obscuring his face. "Can I help you?" she called out, trying to sound brave, but he didn't respond. He just smiled, a wide, chilling grin that sent shivers down her spine. Panic surged through her as she grabbed her bag and rushed to the door, but as she turned the key in the lock, she heard footsteps behind her, slow and deliberate. She glanced back and saw him moving closer, his eyes dark and hollow. "Let me in," he whispered softly. Mia flung open the door and sprinted into the night. The wind whipped around her as she ran down the street, glancing back to see if he was following. The streetlights flickered ominously, casting long shadows that danced around her. Finally reaching her apartment building, Mia fumbled with her keys, hands shaking uncontrollably. She burst through the door and locked it behind her, but as she leaned against it to catch her breath, she heard a soft, tapping sound coming from her living room window. She hesitated before peeking through the curtains. There he was, the man with long hair, standing in the rain outside, staring directly at her with that same haunting smile. "Mia!" he called again, his voice echoing in her mind like a sinister lullaby.